I'm here with Jeremy Hummer. He's the VP of Business Development here at AuthX. Jeremy, thank you very much for having us over. You guys have
Absolutely.
a very cool office. Um, so, um, Interesting story about how I first came across AuthX and how probably they got to know ThinClient Direct is we met at an event at the iGel Disrupt a couple years ago in Miami, and lo and behold, they are 15 minutes away from our office, so they're right around the corner. But we met, you know, uh, all the way on the other side of the country. So um, very interesting. So thank you for having us once again.
Absolutely.
So the idea today was we wanted to get to know a little bit more about AuthX. You guys have very cool technology, and I think it goes along the lines of helping improve the security, which is very important to us at TCD. We want to make management simple. You guys get rid of a lot of that headache, of managing infrastructure, and also making the users happy, making the process super simple for the users. But before we dive into all that, Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about the history of AuthX? Like, where did things start? How did this idea of building this company come about?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I jump in there, you mentioned something about us being able to provide a simple user experience for our users. And as you know, anything that's simple to use is usually hard to build. So we spent a lot of time on really perfecting that ease of use, that seamless experience for those users. But how we started was actually down a different path. We began this company on the basis of authentication. Our goal was to authenticate the world, for lack of a better term, to be able to use your face or your finger as you move through every environment as the authentication for payments, for check-in, for log on, for any of that kind of stuff. We started on the patient side, so we started with facial authentication and fingerprint authentication upon patient check-in.
Okay.
Working with one of our largest clients, they actually asked us, so if you're doing this authentication, can you do it for the providers for EPCS, which is electronic prescribing of controlled substances? So we did that, and we started to work at that point on the staff side. So we really had everything in place to authenticate anyone, but it was based more on the providers.
Okay.
At the time, it was under the name of Certify Health. Um, Once we started to move that to where that staff was using it for login, and we started to see other industries that could benefit from it, we understood that we couldn't sell to a big manufacturing company or something like that with a name like Certify Health.
Gotcha.
So we pulled that out of the platform and we made its own platform, and AuthX was born from there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you broadened out and you pivoted and
Yeah,
did everything that a startup should do.
absolutely.
Um, I mean, based on what you see in the market today, what are the biggest challenges facing organizations when it comes to access and identity?
Yeah. So first was is cost. Um, Everything that was out on the market when we started this, and most of what's as robust as, or I'm sorry, most of what's cloud based out there now is not as robust as we are.
Yeah.
Um, by eliminating on-prem servers and teams to manage those servers, the cost savings is incredible.
Yeah.
When you talk about from a user experience and what some of the hurdles are, as we continue to have bad actors and data breaches and passwords being stolen, the way that they were going about trying to fix that was to increase the complexity of these passwords and changing them, every 60 days or 90 days or
Right.
45 days or whatever their policy is. And even myself, we do that here. Luckily, I have AuthX, so I barely ever have to use a password. But it's now so long. All my kids' names have been used. All my favorite sports heroes' numbers have been used. I'm down to really pointless things that I can't remember.
Right.
So that's a big hurdle as well. But again, really eliminating that password and giving people something that only they have, whether it's biometrics, whether it's RFID, tap and go, whatever that is, so that, and then with the multi-factor authentication as well, being able to leverage two different types of authentication is beginning to bring the security to where it needs to be. I mean, there's always going to be bad actors. There's always people that are out there trying to hack into places that they shouldn't. It's how we can present a solution to do our best to prevent anything from those guys.
Yeah, and I was looking at the demo earlier. I mean, I don't think there's a factor that you guys haven't factored into play. It's
Yeah.
all it's all there. The FIDO keys, the facial recognition, everything is being done there.
Yeah, and we've built it so that the whoever the admin is can build out the policy that to use those different authentication factors in ways that it makes sense to the user. For instance, an entire hospital or entire manufacturing, maybe they don't all want to use facial rec, but maybe some of the C-level people that have the ability to get to much more confidential information, you want them to use facial rec, but it doesn't play in the rest. So we built out the platform to be able to configure these authentication factors and the workflow of those factors all the way down to the individual user or to the groups within the AD. So now all the providers can use tap and go because their most important thing is to be able to move fast. Log in, do your charting, log out, onto the next patient. Yeah. Whereas again, a C-level, the speed is not as important as the security is.
Yeah, I mean the security is super important, but the speed, in the real world, when you're a hospital, you have patients that need quick treatment. If you're a retailer, every minute counts. Every minute is money. That could be lost. So the tap and go technology that you guys have is quite remarkable. I mean, it's if you want to achieve that quickness, and it's also fulfilling the purpose of the hot desking. So people that are moving around from location to location, very quickly getting into their environment.
Yeah, I mean, and most of the companies that we service today, regardless of vertical, have cards in place for access control, for physical access control, to get into the parking garage, to get into whatever wing they need to get into, to get on the elevator, et cetera. So just being able to take that a step farther and utilizing that same card to now log into their workstation, to move between shared workstations, whatever makes sense to those certain individuals, is a very easy and adopted way to be able to log on.
Yeah, and from our perspective, it's just the addition of an RFID reader, and you connect that to the TCD client, and somebody just taps their badge, and you guys take care of the rest. Even the setup, is all cloud based. Yep. So there's not much infrastructure that has to be set up. What are the typical types of companies? I know it's not limited to any company. I'm sure you guys can help any company out there, but it sounds like it began with healthcare. Is there another industry that you guys are seeing a lot of adoption in?
Yeah, so healthcare is always going to be our number one. It's where we have our biggest flag in the sand, or however you want to put it.
Right.
But what we see as a huge use case, and where we're getting a lot of traction, is manufacturing. Again, a lot of these manufacturing employees are going in and they're using inventory software. They're using different type of tracking software. And they're not allowed to have a phone. They're not allowed to carry really anything down into that manufacturing floor. Mm-hmm. So having these cards, which again, they typically already have anyways, and just being able to tap in. And they're also a huge use case for shared workstations. Nobody's walking around the manufacturing floor with their own laptop. They're using these different ones in different sections. So it has to be able to be shared. So manufacturing has been very big for us. Education as well, for a couple different reasons. Again, having to change your passcode all the time and forgetting it and blah, 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 and then not being able to get into whatever your workstation is at the time of class or test or whatever. Yeah. It becomes huge there as well. And another problem with education is these schools they want their students to carry their student badge, and they have a lot of trouble with that. The kids leave it wherever they leave it. And we can embed the RFID into those student badges. So now they can't get to their computer without having their student badge. So now they have their student badge all the time. So those are the two biggest that we've really seen. But again, any big corporation, it becomes, for lack of a better term, almost like a drug, because once you get this card and you see it, just tap and log in. And I don't have to put Jeremy Hummer 1 2 3 4 5 6, my dog's name, etc., to log in.
No post-its or
right.
Yeah, so no, it does make it easy, and as you're saying, once somebody tries it, it's like you can't go back from the old methods. As far as we talked about complexity and making things easy. Obviously, it makes it easy from a user perspective. They just tap their card or do a couple of factors and they're in. What about from the management, from the deployment perspective? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, so again, because it's cloud, it's very easy. There is an agent that sits on each device, but we can. It's a very light agent. We can send it out through any MDA or anything like that. And then the configuration takes place in one portal. So I can go through, in healthcare, especially a lot of the tech teams don't actually work in the facilities. They work from home. They travel from facility to facility. They can build their whole policy out directly from our admin portal. We try to make it as configurable as possible. So our goal with everything is we want to be the tech people. We want our users to not have to be super techy, right? We want them to be able to log in and configure with simple toggle switches and on and off buttons, things like that. So we've really built it out that way. And like I mentioned, being able to build out the workflow at the user level or at the group level allows them to give everyone kind of custom workflows, but also it allows them to prove out their policy when the CIO comes or the CISO comes and says, "What are you doing as far as meeting this compliance?" They can open the portal. They can show every factor. They can show who's using it, how many times they've used it. We can track where you're logging in. So if you log in every day from Washington D.C. and all of a sudden you're logging in from Miami,
Yeah.
I might want to know why you're in Miami when everybody else is up here working, right?
Somehow it's that cold winter.
But there's notifications built into that. There's login notifications, so it really is easy to set up, but it's also very easy to monitor.
Yeah, monitoring and reporting is super important as well. Cool. I mean, from our perspective, we're big into virtualization. So all those VDI solutions, anything from Citrix to Omnissa to Windows 365 and AVD. You guys have done a really good job integrating also with a lot of the endpoint operating systems. So it doesn't really matter if it's Windows 11, Windows 11 IoT, or Linux flavors like N Computing or iGel. I think I saw it all in the lab. So has that been a challenge, to keep up with all the different operating systems?
So I mean, the challenge is a lot of times when you're doing that work, it becomes kind of one directional. Meaning, it's a huge benefit for us, right? We have to have those integrations. We have to be able to go and work with Citrix. I mean, especially in healthcare, there's a iGel is a big one as well. We have to. That's part of what we have to be able to sell. So a lot of it becomes me asking you to do work that doesn't really necessarily benefit you. Now, you might have a customer that really wants AuthX, but at the time when we were really just a startup, it was mostly chasing these guys and girls down and selling to them why it benefits them to do the integration with us. Yeah. So that's really the long one. So a lot of the conferences like iGel, Disrupt, and meeting people and building relationships, because that's what it all comes down to at the end. And then we have a pretty large or nice sized team on our side that works fast, works diligent, and has bought into the product and has bought into the work that we're doing and where we're going. When you think about what the amount of time that we've been on the market and the amount of integrations that we have, it's pretty staggering. I mean, we've done a lot of work.
Excellent. Yeah, I think you guys are doing an amazing job. If there's, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add that is a interesting tidbits, but
no, I mean, I think with ThinClient Direct, we've also integrated to a lot of the different readers. So there is a reader for every device, every workstation. We have desktop readers that have cords and they're a little bit bigger. We have little USB readers that can work in laptops, USB-C. So the reader part is not a challenge. It just depends on what the ease of how you use your computer on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like we can combine it with like a KSI reader that can sense the proximity of the user. So if the user steps away from their machine, then it disconnects them. So there's a lot of cool things. And why TCD has enjoyed this partnership is you guys are very attentive to the to the details. You're easy to work with, and I think you do a lot of even sometimes custom work, for clients that, if they
have say it out loud.
I'm not saying it too loud, but I know you guys are willing to take the time and do it. And sometimes it benefits, if it's benefiting this client, it's going to benefit others, which is our approach as well, very customer centric, kind of like boutique type of solution. But But yeah, thank you very much, Jeremy, for
Absolutely.
having us over. It was a great time. The technology looks great, and I can't wait to tell our clients about AuthX
Absolutely.
and build up this partnership.
I appreciate you coming by and appreciate you working with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.